So this video might just be us complaining because it's the third year in a row we don't get to watch the Blazers in the playoffs. But after watching a tanking team for a few years now and having to watch the Pistons and Wizards this season, I gotta say, it feels like tanking is just completely out of control.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. This is one of the worst Blazers teams ever. I mean, we lost a game by 62 points this season, and there are still 4 teams worse than us in the standings.
Crazy. Before we start talking about NBA tanking just being completely out of control, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on any new videos. So last season, the Detroit Pistons won 17 games. They were ass. Cade only played 12 games, and I really did not think there'd be a team worse than that. But not only are the Pistons, they're not going to reach their win total from last year, the Wizards aren't getting to 17 games either. And how about the Wizards? Even though the Pistons went on that 27-game losing streak, at the time of this recording, they're tied in the standings. How is that even possible?
Yeah, I mean, they got the Heat tonight, which might win, might lose, but I mean, Pistons rack up the longest losing streak in NBA history, and you still got a worse record than them?
At least for the Pistons, you got like Cade. I still think he could be a future star. You got Jalen Duren, who showed some flashes. What the hell do the Wizards got? They got Jordan Poole, they're paying $30 million to come off the bench. They got Kuz, they're paying to chuck up shots. They got Koulibaly, that was their pick. He's been okay, shown a little bit, but they don't even really have young guys to build around at the moment.
I mean, to be fair, this is the first year the Wizards rebuild, and the Pistons are in what, year 16?
Yeah.
Something like that. They've been rebuilding for a while.
15 going on 16.
Then you got the Spurs. It's like, I mean, they're kind of flying under the radar because, oh, they got Wemby and everyone's like all fascinated with him. And look, their future is incredibly bright. They've got the best young prospect in basketball, but they're not going to come close to their win total from last year when they didn't have Wemby.
I mean, they have a worse winning percentage right now than that Pistons team last year that won 17 games. And if you look at the standings, there could be like 3 or 4 teams this season that don't reach 20 wins. That's pathetic.
Can we be one of those teams?
We might. We'll see.
What are we, 17 and 44
Yeah,
right
we only
now?
need 3 more wins, but with the way the Blazers tank, I would not doubt it.
I was going to say, there's one thing you know about the Blazers from the past couple years. We are generational tankers.
That brings us into our next point, talking about the Spurs. Is tanking worth it? I mean, obviously it was worth it for them. They're set for the next decade because they got Wemby, but not every team is able to just draft a generational prospect and get the #1 overall pick. I mean, look at the Pistons. They've basically been tanking for 15 seasons. I know they made the playoffs like twice, but really they've been a tanking team for a decade and a half at this point.
And you said it, like, not every team can draft a generational player. Not every team can get the #1 pick. Look at the Blazers. Even when you get the #1 pick, sometimes you f it up.
Yeah, I mean, the Pistons got the #1 overall pick. They drafted Cade. I still think that was a good pick, but that's just how the roster is. They have no one outside him to help, so they're still stuck tanking, even though they just got the #1 overall pick.
Well, when you're taking Killian Hayes in the top 10.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Dude can't make a G League roster, and yet he was taken in the top 10.
And on a more personal note, I mean, we're both Blazers fans. This is the 3rd year of tanking, and I get it was probably the right time to move on from Dame.
If anything, it was a couple years too late.
Yeah, it was a couple years too late, but the tanking has hurt the team big time. Like, the popularity in this city, the Blazers, has plummeted. There was that report of the local viewership down 50%. It doesn't feel like this rebuild is ending anytime soon.
Nah, it feels like next year, like, the maximum we can achieve is the play-in. Like, if we make the play-in next year, I'll be over the moon. But yeah, you mentioned it. I mean, interest in the Blazers in the city has, like, evaporated. Like, no one talks about this team. No one watches this team, the local viewership thing. I think that's a little bit to do with the fact that we have a really shitty cable deal with Root Sports. But I tell you what, it wouldn't be down 50% if the team was good.
I mean, what's the point of watching the Blazers lose by 15 when you can watch, like, a national TV game or, like, an actual good team play?
I mean, on Wednesday, I was stuck at home sick. The Blazers were playing the Thunder, and then there was a national TV game on. I can't remember who it was. I think it was the Warriors and Milwaukee, I think. It was the Warriors and Bucks. And I was like, I'm not watching the Blazers. Blazers? I'm watching the national TV game. I'm watching Giannis. I'm watching Steph. Like, I'm not watching the Blazers lose again.
And the damage it's done to the damn franchise. Like, the Blazers, I know they weren't a contender, but they made the playoffs for what, like 8 straight seasons with Dame? They tanked for 3 years, and now they're basically known as just a team that always loses, which is kind of true, but not completely true.
I mean, we have the 7th highest winning percentage in NBA history.
Exactly. Can we get anything for that?
No, because it's all about what have you done for me lately.
Exactly.
Especially when you're a small market, too.
One good example, though, of a small market that kind of escaped from the tanking cycle was the Sacramento Kings. 16 straight years not making the playoffs. They missed on basically every single pick they took.
Except DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah, except for him. They made that win now move for Sabonis, which you could easily say they lost the trade, but I think it was kind of a win-win. They make the playoffs last year. They're gonna make it again this year. They're a great example of, like, you gotta escape the tanking hole at some point.
Yeah, I mean, for the Kings, they got bounced in the first round by Golden State, sure, but when you've missed the playoffs for 16 straight years, and now you get a home court advantage for a series, like, sometimes for a small market team, like, that's enough. I would give an arm and a leg to go watch a Blazers home playoff game tomorrow.
And we'd all love for the NBA to find a way to stop tanking, but it just honestly doesn't feel possible at this point. I know they've tried a couple things. They did like the #1 odds, like the bottom 3 teams are all tied at 14%. They added the play-in, but I mean, even the play-in we saw last year, the Mavericks, they had Luka and Kyrie, and they tanked out of the play-in just to keep their first round pick.
And the big problem is, it worked.
It did.
They got Derek Lively, who's giving them 8.5 points, 7 boards a game, playing good defense. He's only 20 years old. That Dallas team last year, they weren't beating Denver. I mean, maybe they could have beaten Memphis, considering all the problems Memphis had, but this is the problem with tanking. Like, it absolutely worked for the Mavericks last year, and honestly, it's worked throughout NBA history. Look at Philadelphia. Sure, they haven't won the title or anything, but they got an MVP, an NBA MVP, out of the process. They took a lot of shots, they missed a lot of shots, but all you need to do really is hit on one.
Yeah, and think about how many, like, #1 overall picks, top prospects have just been complete game changers. You got like Shaq, Duncan, LeBron. Nowadays we're talking about Wemby, Dwight Howard. If you can get the #1 pick some years, your franchise is set for 10 to 15 years after that.
Also, I've seen people bring this up online. It feels like scouting is getting better.
It definitely is.
Like, who was the last #1 pick that was like a true, like, bust, a true bomb? Like, I know Ben Simmons and maybe DeAndre Ayton haven't lived up to the hype that people had for them, but like, who was the last true bust?
Anthony Bennett.
It was Bennett, yeah.
It
was Anthony Bennett. But like, other than that, it's like all the #1 picks and most of like the top 3-4 picks from the past couple years, maybe they're not all superstars, but they'll all make your team better.
Honestly, it wouldn't work for a ton of reasons, but add relegation. Imagine the Detroit Pistons, the Wizards, I mean, even the Blazers.
I was gonna say, the Blazers would be going down too. You ready for that?
I mean, might as well. At least Jody might finally sell the team. It would be worth it just for the joke.
So how would that work if the Blazers are in the G League? Would they have to play the Rip City remix?
Yeah. Might as well.
Wow, that's depressing.
So what do you guys think about NBA tanking? Can they do anything at all to stop this from happening? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving a like. And hey, while you're here, check out some of our other content as well. And don't forget to subscribe to Synthetic Sports.